Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. Magic the Gathering is a game packed with conflict. Heroes versus villains, fire versus water, elves versus everyone ugly on Lorwyn. And as we enter the era of the Omenpaths, we can expect to see even more confrontations play out across the multiverse. One small way in which the game tries to capture these explosive moments is with the fight mechanic, in which creatures deal damage equal to their power to each other outside of combat. With the Omenpaths providing countless opportunities for cultures to clash and fists to fly, I thought this would be a great time to look back at some of the game's best uses of fighting. And wouldn't you know it, this episode is sponsored by Alpha Clash, a new trading card game that features contenders battling it out for supremacy all over the Earth, and maybe even beyond. The full release is July 21, but you can order now through Team Covenant. Not only will you save 20% on their booster box deal, but you'll also receive an exclusive promo card. Even more exciting, if you order the 2-player Clash kit, it comes with 3 additional blister packs and will ship now as a pre-release special. These packs expand your collection and let you tap into the game's 5 colors and 6 factions as you search for the perfect contender to lead your deck. Will you pick Moxie and use her massive military arsenal to control vital clash grounds like Denver? Or will you follow the power-hungry Magnate and shrug off your opponent's pathetic attacks while leaving traps for them in your wake? Your contender sets the tone for your whole deck, and each one has a pair of abilities that trigger as they take damage and their health falls, potentially giving you exactly what you need to push back and win the game. I especially like the flexibility of the resource system in Alpha Clash. Any card can be played as a resource of its own color, so you don't have to worry about running hot or cold on lands. Combat feels snappy, and the use of weapons, traps, and clash buffs keep you on your toes as you try to wear down your opponent's contender before they can do the same to yours. Multiplayer is supported, and the game's first set has enough contenders for everyone in your playgroup to run someone different with their own strategy, strengths, and weaknesses. But this is Magic Arcanum, and it takes more than just cards to get us hyped. So, it's a good thing Alpha Clash has its own entire graphic novel that tells the story behind the cards, too. So yeah, there's a lot to like here, and I encourage you to learn more about Alpha Clash by using my link down below and placing your order with Team Covenant today, so you'll have cards in hand when the game is officially released on July 21st. Alright, now let's take a look at my top 10 fight cards in Magic. To start, we've got Prey Upon from Innistrad. This was the first time fight appeared as a keyword action, meaning, prior to this, they spelled the whole thing out on each card. Establishing fight as a keyword made it much easier to include on future cards, and helped show it as being a key part of green's place in the color pie. In theory, each color has a way to interact with creatures. Black can murder them, red can burn them, white can exile them, blue can counter them or bounce them, and green now had a cleanly templated way to fight them. Prey Upon tells an entire story in just one card, right? Something big and hungry is going to devour something smaller and probably weaker, though it does get a chance to fight back because that's how nature works. But sometimes fights aren't about filling your belly. No, sometimes they're about filling your ego, and that's when you step into the arena, my number 9 card. This land is designed to emulate an arena in which you send forth your best challenger and hope they come back alive. With a strong enough creature on your side, you can slowly pick apart your opponent's board, since they have to keep accepting your polite request to duel, though this is somewhat mana intensive, especially since you're running a land that doesn't make mana itself. Still, it works for any color, and it is an interesting political tool to have available in your favorite commander deck. Arena is also a neat bit of Magic history because it was at first only available as a promotional card you got along with buying a specific book before it was reprinted in Time Spiral and made more widely available. For number 8, we're jumping over to Tarkir, where we got a dragon that not only starts a fight when he enters the battlefield, but buffs up your creatures for every fight they survive. A fights matter creature is an interesting concept, and I'll give an honorable mention to all of the legends that came after and are thus probably better suited for leading a commander deck, but I still like this one because it's on a flying creature, and green so rarely gets those. So Foe-Raiser manages to feel weird for green while also still feeling perfectly logical. It's a creature that shows up and immediately fights something. My number 7 card takes this idea one step further with Ravager Worm from Ravnica Allegiance. 6 mana for a 4/5 might not sound all that impressive, but when you look at how many different modes this creature has and how they all interact, it becomes a really flexible card. First, you've got Riot. You can give this guy a +1/+1 counter as he enters the battlefield, or give him haste. Then you get to pick between a fight on arrival or destroying a utility land. This means you can blow up a control player's land and hit them with a hasty threat, or knock a flyer out of the sky and leave a body behind that's big enough to stop your opponent's next attack. It's a bit expensive, but useful on just about any board state, which shows you how strong an optional fight upon entering the battlefield can be. However, this is something that the designers of Magic have said they feel they need to be careful with. Too many green creatures that fight on their own start to overlap with cards like Flametongue Kavu or Ravenous Chupacabra. Removal with legs. The issue is that green's fighters tend to leave behind much bigger bodies, which can make them too efficient at being both a threat and an answer in one card. All you amateur cube designers out there, take notes. Anyway, Ikoria gave us Clash of Titans, which takes my number 6 spot. So far, fights have been mostly green's thing, but red can do them too, often with a twist. Clash of Titans lets you turn your opponent's creatures against each other, potentially taking out 2 of their best threats with one card, and you can even do it in the middle of combat. It's a neat trick, and it's one of the few cards from Ikoria that really captures the home of the giant monsters theme they were going for, with 2 towering brutes about to slug it out while the humans watch from a safe distance. The impulsive nature of red definitely gives it a different flavor than green when it comes to fights, which usually have a more natural selection vibe to them. When red's hatred burns bright enough, you get something like Guild Feud, a 6-mana enchantment from Return to Ravnica, showing the tension between the honorable Boros and the demonic Rakdos. At the start of your upkeep, target opponent reveals the top 3 cards of their library and may put a creature from among them onto the battlefield. Then you do the same. If you both put out a creature this way, they fight. Ravnica is a plane defined by the differences between guilds, but also by their similarities. Boros and Rakdos each have a red element to them, and while this card isn't attributed to either of them, the flavor works for both. The random threats emerging from your opponent's library feel like creatures on the guest list for a Rakdos street party, which you attempt to disband by bringing forth a brave champion from your own legion of troops. It's another story-driven way to use the fight mechanic, and it neatly overlaps with 2 opposing guilds on one of Magic's most popular planes. What a cool card! Number 4 is a fighter who just won't quit, and that's Brash Taunter from M21. I want to be clear that I appreciate this card for its mechanical innovation, but, personally, I don't really like playing against it. The fact that this little goblin is indestructible and can be used to both block and then also still pull off a fight makes him feel way too powerful for just 5 mana. Even if you try to avoid him by using flying creatures, he can still reach up and poke your dragon and deal you a huge amount of damage in return. So yeah, while I enjoy the flavor behind this card, gameplay-wise, I think this one pushed the envelope a bit too far, but I'm curious to hear what you think down in the comments. My number 3 card teases perhaps the future of fight spells, and that's Skyshroud Ambush. This is a digital-only card on Magic Arena, but it, or something like it, could work in paper, in theory. Presently, the rules for Magic, and the fight keyword in particular, don't actually identify the winner of a fight. The closest we have is Boxing Ring from the New Capenna Commander release, which looks to see if you control a creature that did fight this turn. This doesn't mean it won, though, right? A pair of 4/5s fighting each other leaves you with a draw, but you would still get the prize here. Still, the idea that we could have fight cards that care about a winner or a survivor is interesting. It kind of goes back to what Faux Razor Regent was doing earlier with its awkward delayed trigger, but I think there is design space here that could be used in creative and flavorful ways. Which brings me to my second favorite fighting card, Polukranos Unchained. This zombie hydra from Theros continues in the tradition of his original card, which could effectively fight multiple creatures when it became monstrous. A 6/6 for just 4 mana is intimidating, but since he's a zombie now, those extra heads fall off as they take damage, rather than regenerate, as hydras often do. It's not until he uses his escape ability and returns to the battlefield with a whopping 12 power and toughness that he becomes able to fight multiple times and survive long enough to still be a threat. I like this more than Brash Taunter because it's a more fair card, and in my experience, fair cards often tell better stories. Polukranos lurking on your opponent's side of the board, waiting for the right time to pounce on something that won't cost him too many of his own counters, is dramatic and exciting. He also works great with cards that add counters. Usually those are green, but in the context of this legend, it makes you feel like a dark wizard prolonging his undead life through sinister means. And then, for some reason, he dropped the black and lost the ability to fight anyone directly. Thanks for nothing, New Phyrexia. So that brings me to my number 1 fight card in the game, Savage Punch from Khans of Tarkir. I mean, it's got a guy punching a bear. Of course it's number 1. But aside from having some of the best art of all time, this is also a fight spell with a chance to buff your creature first, making it much more likely they will survive. To earn that clutch +2/+2, you'll need to prove how ferocious you are by controlling a creature with power 4 or greater. Note that this can be the one doing the fighting, or not, if you'd rather have a mentor-type figure making it all possible from the sidelines. But either way, with enough power on your side of the battlefield, you can punch a bear and live to tell about it. In this timeline, anyway. And that's it. Those are my 10 favorite cards that use the fight mechanic. And from the humble Prey Upon to the mighty Savage Punch, they're all bursting with conflict. Which one did you like best? Let me know down in the comments, and check out my link for Alpha Clash while you're down there, because one good fight deserves another. Then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya.